Right, I've hit
Cancel
the
my
going
life.
live button and we. Oh shit, I pressed the wrong button. Are live. Super. Welcome to Doing Bits, the podcast where we get comedians from all across the world. And this is potentially the furthest we've gone. I'd have to do the maths on how far LA is versus how far
No,
Katharyn is
no,
right
it's the
now.
furthest. I'm sorry. I should interrupt.
So this is the furthest we've gone. Hence, we've had to adjust our live YouTube schedule to accommodate the time difference. So it is 1 p.m. in the UK and it is 10 p.m. where you are.
Correct.
So we've found a nice compromise, I think. If you haven't listened to Doing or tuned in to Doing Bits before, it's a podcast where we get comedians in lockdown to chat through ideas that are quarantined in their brains. We don't have gigs to do. We don't have new material shows to try out some stuff. So we have a lot of joke ideas that need airing. And we chat about comedy and what we miss about comedy and what we're looking forward to with comedy coming back, if it ever comes back. Um, there's no chance. As you'll have noticed, regular Doing Bits viewers will notice that that is not Eshaan Akbar in the top left-hand corner. That is my good friend John Maher. Eshaan is doing the Drive Time radio show on the BBC Asian network currently, so cannot attend our Doing Bits live shows, but he will be back next week. But we've got the fantastic John Maher. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you very much. The fantastic, much better than Eshaan, John Mayer.
Yes, yeah, that's it.
Eshaan dropped you like a fucking bad habit as soon as he got even a tiny bit of traction. He fucked you right off. Anyway, very nice to be here. Nice to meet you, Katharyn.
And yes, our guest this
Hello.
week is the fantastic Katharyn Henson, who has performed all over the world, from New York to London to Australia. That's all of the places, I think. Did I miss anywhere?
Edinburgh.
Oh, there we go.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're starting over whenever it starts again. It
Yeah,
doesn't.
nothing counts before now. We're back to square
Edinburgh
one.
No.
definitely doesn't matter.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So I've heard. So I've been told.
um, so, Katharyn, you have an interesting perspective on this because you've had one show since lockdown got momentarily
Yes.
lifted where you are. So, but we'll go through the normal questions. We'll say, barring that show, what do you miss about live stand-up?
I. I mean, just live stand up. How about that? I mean, there's not any very specific. It's just how about the whole thing? I do miss bombing with everybody and laughing. You know, when everybody bombs,
Yes.
like one of those shows. That's kind of fun. There's something very fun about bonding with people over like just bombing. But like specifically, would I say you know, want that back? Like, and none of the rest? No, pretty. Yeah, I mean, I'll take a fucking open mic at this point. I don't really give a shit. Just anything to
Yeah.
like.
My mate, I had
Yeah.
a really nice phone call last night. My mate phoned me and he just bombed at a charity Zoom gig. Like, died on his ass. Apparently, someone in the audience in the Zoom gig did this noise. Ha! Just because it was going so badly. And at one point, he couldn't see someone who was like heckling him. So he went like this. And then someone was like, should have gone to Specsavers, mate. And it was just like the worst death he's ever had. And it was actually really nice to talk through a proper bomb with someone in.
See, I thought doing a Zoom gig is a bomb.
Yeah, just
Just like being on a Zoom gig. Just
Yeah.
like.
Do you have?
Thanks, Katharyn. I barely want to do this fucking thing right now.
Well, yeah.
Um,
This is all I have. Like I've been clinging to this for weeks. So
yeah,
you're here to keep me not dead because I'm on the edge.
yeah.
Can I ask? Sorry, where are you actually? Are you in Australia or is that
I'm in Australia.
Oh,
I'm-
right.
So tell us the
First it was
story of how
novel.
that happened. So you went out there to do the festivals, and then the world exploded.
Yeah. And the festivals were canceled, and it was like, oh, I'm in Australia. At least it's not, New York, which is like imploding. But now guess what? Guess what? New York's fine because New York's always fine. That's the thing, is they're always like, fuck it. We'll do a show in a park, in a vestibule, like under a gazebo. Like they're good. They're all just wearing their fucking masks. Guess who's not wearing their masks? Anybody in Australia. And now I happen to be in the epicenter, the hot spot of this virus. So then to add insult to injury, the other comics in other areas of Australia are making fun of any comics in this area of Australia because they're all off lockdown and we're on full lockdown. And I'm not, there are so many reasons why I'm like, fuck, why did I end up here? And that's why I know it's further than at Los Angeles, because I've looked it up.
Yeah.
I looked it up just to see. I was like, how far am I? Like, I got into a thing with Mark because he was like, Ireland is further. And I was like, New York is further from where we are. And guess what? It's New York. I win. I am the furthest away humanly possible that I could be from anything that I have known. So very exciting.
Yeah.
It's a death trap. Yeah. Also, I just have to tell you, it's winter. So I've been in winter since November. Okay. I haven't experienced summer. I haven't been on a beach. I haven't seen a koala. Like I'm be in Michigan. I swear to God, it doesn't matter that I'm in Australia. It sucks. And when I get back to the UK, whenever I do in like September, it'll be winter again. So I'm going to be in 15 months of like consecutive winter days. I'm losing it. I don't know if you can tell.
Wait, how cold is it in Melbourne in the winter? I thought it was always hot.
No, it's not always hot. It's cold and rainy right now. Okay, look, I'm trying to learn Celsius because I'm like, this is my life. So I've switched to military time in Celsius, which is hilarious because it means I never know what time it is. And I also don't know what the temperature is. But it is 10 degrees outside right now.
Oh, fuck.
And you know what I packed? Summer clothes. I've packed summer to fall, and like as a overpacker, like always packed too much every time in my whole life, like to London too. Mark was like, wow, you brought a lot of shit you didn't even use. So this time I was like, I'm going to do an international sized carry-on and a backpack and call it a day because I'm going to Australia for like a couple months. No big deal. That's what I have. I have mini skirts, shorts, tank tops, a couple light sweaters, I'm freezing my dick off. Okay. And I'm miserable. I'm fucking miserable. And where I live, there's mold. Everywhere I've gone to, wherever I've lived in Australia, there is mold in my room. And I don't know if it's coming from my attitude, but it is moldy. My head hurts and I'm breathing in it like fuzzy mold in the closet. Ruined 2 pair of my shoes. Okay. I had to go to a guy and have him bake my shoes in a shoe oven to fix my $700 knee-high Stuart Weitzman boots that I bought here and never got to wear. Okay. Like I am fucked up right now. And that's not even, I know this is all like boo-hoo, but like it gets worse. Like it gets way worse. This is just like the normal bad. There's like so much bad underneath that bad. It's fuck. I'm sorry. What was the question?
Thanks for listening.
I don't know, but I can't wait until you see a spider.
Yeah.
Did I see a spider? I did spider in Sydney, a pretty big one. It was kind of, I was like, oh, but then here there's nothing. Oh. It's really lackluster.
That was an amazing rant. That didn't even mention the fact that you got married in lockdown as well.
Yeah,
congratulations.
I did. And
Mazel tov.
Thank you. And you know what? That was fun. That was a fun day. That was something to do. It filled an afternoon. It was good. I feel like, I feel like in my current state, if I were to remain exactly as I am right now for 2 more weeks, I would ensure that marriage would end. Because I'm losing it. And I'm like, sit him down and I go, I need to communicate to you. I am losing my mind. And when I say that, it's not an exaggeration. I'm losing my mind. And last night I went a little crazy and then he looked scared and I was like, I've been telling you I'm losing it. You know what I mean? Because it's like, what else can you do except be like, I know I'm crazy. Please listen to me. Because then you go crazy and they're like, oh, like I've warned you, So we're moving is what I'm saying.
Good. That sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
To move. So tell us about the one show you managed to do, because I've seen comedians in Australia like Dan Muggleton doing what seemed like pretty legit comedy club shows. And
Yeah.
he was making fun
And
of
Dan Muggleton.
the area that you're in now, which is funny. But tell us about how that show went.
It's funny because I came from there. That's where I was at
That's
first.
so brutal.
So, you know, I made the wrong choice. The one show I did, so, you know, I'm watching like the news in both like America, the UK, and here. And like, so the one show I did is pretty much not following any of the guidelines that like say New York City is doing, which is A, no indoor shows, and B, everyone is masked at all times. And there is, you know, a 6-foot like distance. Show, no one was wearing, I don't know if this is the question, but like no one was wearing masks. There were about 14 people because that's how many were allowed in the room. And you go up there knowing it's probably going to be your last that time. So then there's like all this pressure. That's what I felt, because I was like, I really hope this isn't the last one. The last one I didn't know was going to be the last one, and then it was the last one. And this one I was like, this is probably going to be the last one. So, you know, my timing was off and I hate myself, the usual suspects, right? Like for not having done stand-up in like 3 months. Everybody was funny though, which was upsetting too. So that made me more nervous. So I get booked on the show. I see some people that I know there. I don't know if you know Luca Mueller or Adam Knox. Adam Knox is ridiculously funny. And he's sitting there telling jokes, you know, he did it perfectly. You know, like you think everybody's going to go up and tell their quarantine hacky bullshit jokes, but he was basically like, I took time off of stand-up before coronavirus hit. So these jokes are all from 2019. And so he's like telling the jokes, like he crafted it
within
perfectly.
the frame.
It was very funny. Like, yeah, like he was like 2020 is going to be my year, you know, and then whatever. So I apologized to the manager immediately. I was like, look, I haven't been up in 3 months, so I'm going to apologize in advance in case I bomb. And I didn't bomb. For me, it was like fine, but like I've watched the tape and I hate doing that, and it was fine. And then I did 2 sets. I did 2 different things, very ambitious, forgot my own tags and callbacks, you know, of jokes that I've been doing for 4 years. So that was a reason to hate myself. And all in all, it made me feel alive, and now it's over again.
But I think that's the fear. John, have you felt this where like you are a bit worried about like literally just remembering all the intricacies of all your bits?
No, I've just accepted it's not going to happen. So I'm not worried. There's no point in worrying about that, because I'm like, no amount of preparation for me, the way my brain works, is going to help that. So
yeah,
I just have to be okay with me the first couple of times out. It's going to be rusty, old rusty chops. And and you know, hope that kind of fucking gives you the adrenaline shot for the next few after that. But I think like the first 2-3 weeks back for everyone is just going to be, it's going to be amazing to watch, because everyone's going to be terrible. But yeah, I think, you know, that's like worrying is just, I've just accepted it. So like we just have to keep going.
What I found interesting was like, so, you know, I was so nervous for the first one that I apologized to the manager. And then, you know, it went well enough where he was like, look, if that was you with 3 months off, then, you know, I'm not worried. But I'm like, you know, I know how I feel. So it's like the first one, I acknowledged my situation. Like rather than going up there and just trying to like work my bits, I was like, you know, look, I was here for this festival. My flight was canceled. I live here now. You know, I got married, that filled in that, like pretty much what I said. You know, I was just, I was really honest with sort of not feeling nervous, but it was authentic. Whereas in the second set, I was like, all right, kind of try to do what I used to do with crowd work and people, because like I saw 2 people in the crowd and I was like, oh, that can lead into this joke. I want to work on these other jokes too. I don't want to do the same set for both shows. And that one was a whole different vibe. Do you know what I mean? Like I was told it was like a different set. I don't feel like it went as well, but does that make sense? Like it was like you're trying to pump back in life to something that like isn't real or as authentic anymore. Whereas like the first one, when I was like, fuck, I'm fucked, you know, they were like, oh, hooray, you know, and they were willing to go with me.
I think that's the thing. I think it's very much an art form about being authentic and being genuine. So if you just go on and be like, so I went on this date the other day, everyone's gonna be like, what?
Yeah.
Like, no, you didn't. Or just like everything has to be within the context of the world as it stands. I feel like that's always been the case for stand up, but now we're in obviously
Yeah.
exceptional circumstances with that. John, where was your last gig before lockdown?
my last gig was I was contractually obliged, so I was doing support for Jarlath, and we couldn't get out of it. The venue was like threatening to sue, so we did this fucking giant venue in London with like, you know, they could seat like 900 or something, and there was 200 people in it, which that should be massive, but it was like, yeah, it was really weird. It was good because I think everybody was like, why are we here? Like, even the audience was like, why are we here?
Yeah.
Jarlath had a thermometer he was doing with, and it went okay. It was me, him, Tom, Lucy, and Niall McNamee, the singer. So it was just a very strange one because we were like, what the fuck are we doing? And and then I was meant to have another one the next night, and I pulled it, and this was for another thing. The venue was like, you have to come down. You'll never work in this town again. Like, I was
you're
like, hey.
You're like, you have no idea how true that is.
Yeah, I was like, hey, cool, man, go fuck yourselves. So, and then lockdown happened that day. So it was like, yeah. So the last one was kind of weird, but I mean, it could have been worse. It's like,
you're one of these underlying health conditions people. So how do you feel about getting back to crowded rooms?
Me, I can't wait. So I've had a heart attack, Katharyn, in case you didn't know. But
so Katharyn, get some fucking
perspective
on your little problems, Katharyn, for fuck's sakes.
Oh, give me fuck off.
So luckily science has shown that I'm at no greater risk of catching it than anyone else. But if I do get it, then I'm fucked. But I think I'll be fine. And I don't know, man. I'm just like keeping my distance. I've got little pots of sanitizer that I squeeze in people's eyes. But you know, it's like the juice is worth the squeeze for me. I can't wait to go back. Get me in. Someone cough in my mouth and laugh. Just get me back in those fucking rooms.
Yeah.
I will say I did a mic before I did that show. A mic opened up, and so I had all these like hopes for this open mic, right? Which is like, that was the first mistake.
Yeah.
Because it's like, an open mic is still an open mic, you
know.
No
matter
but I was
what
like,
the context.
Oh, goody. Yeah, I'm like, it's my first one, and these people don't know me, and I know I'm funny. And I went up there, and I had 5 minutes, and I had decided, I was like, look, it's been 3 months, time to work on a bit. So I changed the end of my like yeast bit, right, to this like rambling thing about like describing my vagina after using this like Monistat 1 as like charred deli meat. And, you know, I get into real, and like, I'm so excited to do this. And like, I'm in this room, and it just wasn't getting the response I wanted. So like, when I got off from that open mic, I was like, I want to die. Like, I feel worse than I did before, which is like par for the course. Like, why would I think it would be different? But I guess I thought, because I don't know any of these people and I know I'm funny, sometimes when I go to mics like in towns like that where people don't know me, I can like do really well, because they're like, what is this weird bullshit, you know? But that didn't happen here.
Yeah.
And you know, I went home and was like, what's the point, you know, again?
Because
that is every open mic, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what. But it was just like after 3 months, like, you know what I mean? I had like daydreams of like having magic to make an open mic go well. You know what I mean? Like, that's your first mistake, is to expect anything out of your first setup again. You know, like, I was like thinking, God, I'm so ready, and I've released all this like ego and this and that and the other, because nothing matters. It's like, no, I think it all is going to come back the moment you grab a microphone, because you're like, fuck, is this going to go well? You know, whatever.
Yeah, I'm quite nervous. I'm putting on a little, I've told both of you, I'm putting on like a gig in my garden in my house. And I think I think I'm struggling to like accept that it will go badly because it's my garden and I'm like bringing people into my home and I'm gonna be like, yeah, welcome to the show, and then just fucking bomb and then be like, thanks for coming. Just fucking terrible.
Yeah. Then you gotta get those people to leave, and there's
Yeah.
always somebody who's not gonna leave, you know? And they're gonna be like, man, you know, have you taken the time to thought about what else you'd like to do with your life?
Now, people are going to be giving you fucking grass. Never mind his life.
That's true.
You have to go through your
I
kitchen
was
to get
gonna
out.
say
No, you don't.
mow the grass because
Yeah, we'll definitely cut the grass. But I am shitting myself, but I think that's good. I miss anxiety. I mean, I've had not that's a bad word. I miss performance anxiety. I've had underlying anxiety about the state of the world for the past 4 months.
oh yeah.
But I miss this shitting myself before walking on and grabbing a microphone. Because I still like. I mean, I kind of thought it would go away eventually, but I mean, I haven't been doing stand up for that long. But at pretty much every time before I go up and until I grab the microphone, I'm having almost a full blown panic attack.
My worst deaths are always when I don't feel anxious or excited. So.
Yeah.
No, if I've ever felt good when I'm about to go up, I usually ended up with a crooked finger after that bomb. That was crazy. You know, look at that. That's a
What?
reminder.
How did it? What?
It was one of my top like 3 bombs, and I was doing the fist, and like they were with me at the beginning, and then I got into the sex dungeon stuff and the fisting bit, and I was new enough and the bit was new enough.
The names of your bits are amazing.
they're just accurate, you know, they're just really but like I started doing it, and instead of just reading and going like they hate this, I was like I had to be relentless with that bit for a while and basically bomb with it. Do you know what I mean? Like it was like I had to bomb with it enough times to find a way to make it comfortable for everybody. And that's what I found about my material. It's like I require a bomb, like a major bomb, like a few bombs. But this was so bad because they had liked me and they went from liking me to hating me. And it was silent. And out of the corner of my eye, I see the producer walk in. He had not been there the whole time. I'm eating it like to silence. I left the stage to silence. So I walked out to him and lied and was like, yeah, it's a new bit. And he was like, well, you know, you might want to put the new bits in between 2 bits that you know. And I'm like, it's not a fucking new bit. And so I went and I got so hammered that I ended up, I don't know how it happened, but I have a crooked finger now. And that was a rough night. That was a rough night.
One of Vittorio's gigs knocked me off the wagon as well.
Oh, yeah.
I did Victorio's gig. I hadn't drank it 6 months and went home and fucking plowed through a bottle of wine.
Was that the St. Patrick's Day one a couple of years ago?
Maybe. I don't know. But I remember leaving going, if I see him in the next 2 days, I'm going to murder him. Even though it's always my fault. Like it was my fault, not yours.
Oh, wait, from a bad gig? Because I remember we did the St. Patrick's Day show with Mickey and Aaron and Neil.
No, it wasn't that.
And you had a drink after, and you were like, "Oh, I don't normally," but I was like, "Yeah, no, fuck when." Oh no, I remember that. No, in Dalston.
Yeah, you messaged to apologize. To be fair, so it wasn't just me.
Yeah. I didn't have a good one. I did not have a good show.
So, Katharyn, are you primarily in New York, or you're just all over?
Yeah. I mean, I started. See, that's such a loaded question for me at this point because I just got this flash of how I've had to move all of my things out of my apartment into storage. I know I'm a woman. You're going to get a long answer. I started in New York. I was in New York. I was like up until January, but then I went to London and I foresaw a future for me in London. Then I was coming here to do the festivals and I was going back to London. Okay. And I'm still going back to London because New York, especially having stepped away from it, is a cesspool. And there are some talented people in this cesspool, but it's very interesting to kind of see how Americans work as an American, but like from the side. And it's like we pretty much only care about ourselves, you know?
And
Like,
so
and that's entertainment, but yeah.
in what way? Sorry, and like when you say cesspool, my immediate thought is the amount of fucking horrific rapists and sexual assaulters that's popping up here every 5 minutes. Like, is that similar or different vibes?
Yeah, you mean you're talking about the comedians, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. There are so many comics, and there's a lot of good comedy, there's a lot of really bad comedy, but the baseline is like we're all pretty good, and we'll all work for free because we all want the opportunity to be on stages. So there's no real opportunity there unless I don't know, the people that I know who seem to be a thing, like have either done a podcast that becomes big, and then they're not very funny on stage, but they don't have to be because they have like an Instagram following of like 100,000 people. So it doesn't matter, like, I think, I've seen some really great people break into the cellar. Then like you can be in the cellar one day and out the next day. So there's no guarantee you get to like make a little comedy in New York City unless you hit some real like pinnacle. And the shows nightly, like compared to London, like, it's funny because I'm sitting at the show here and they're like, look, there's only 14 people. And I'm like, yo, this is better than most New York City bar shows. Like, I'm fine. This looks good to me, So it helps you like get good because you're willing to do a lot and do almost like any type of show in any time, or at least I was, but like your ability to make money and have a career and not be working a full-time day job is like minimal, So yeah, again, long answer to your question. I hope to not be in New York predominantly anymore.
And then, John, we've discussed this before, but I'd like to know your thoughts, Katharyn, about whether there's like a point at which doing open mics and being around an open mic scene kind of becomes detrimental to your performance because you're around this kind of like inexperience, like kind of like a pool of inexperience, and you're seeing stuff and like maybe consistently being the best person on the show, and like you maybe get lazy, or because a lot of time there's material that will work at an open mic that has a lot of comedians in the audience that won't work at a club or an actual fucking show. And do you find, like, how do you manage? Because it seems like in New York there's less of an almost like denigration of open mics, whereas in London, like, no one just pops into, like, not very many people big acts pop into an open mic to work on stuff, but from what we've spoken about in the past, that does happen more in New York.
So there's like, several tiers. There's an open mic and, which is pretty much strictly comics. You're not going to have an audience there of any kind. So, and then there's like a bar show where you might have like audience. Then you have club shows where, again, you might have audience. And then like self-produced shows at like independent venues, which would be pretty hot shows depending on who's running them. And might be some of the best shows in the city. So with that said, like in terms of an open mic, it's like, you can look at it one of two ways. I'm imagine you're both like familiar with Daniel Simonson.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So when Daniel came to New York, I remember when I was first introduced to him is what I mean to say. And it was like everybody was kind of like, who's this guy? Like, who's here now? Who's very funny. And he was going to mics. He would go to mics like everybody else, put his name in a fucking bucket and whatever. And nobody really knew what his like status was elsewhere, and it didn't really matter. Now, I'm sure at some point it did matter, like in terms of him like going to the cellar. I don't know. I can't speak to it. And I imagine he has an agent and this and that and the other. But it was like he would go to an open mic and use the open mic to try out a bit, which is what I go to an open mic for. You have people who go to an open mic for a hang, and whether or not they're going to become serious at comedy, I mean, that's up to them. But like a friend of mine who I think is very funny and very unique in the New York comedy scene, his name's Andrew Castertano. He does something like nobody else. He does this mic tapping thing. And for me to even emulate it would be ridiculous. But he's very, very funny. And he started breaking into like out of the mics, into bar shows, into clubs. And I saw like for a minute, in my opinion, he had to readjust his timing out of open mic timing into club timing because he used to go so fast, because at a mic, you're kind of like, like I'm just gonna get this out laughing, it doesn't matter. But then when you're like in a club, you kind of like need to be like, fuck, I need to slow down because I need to wait so I don't run over my laugh. So it's like where I'm from, you know, people use mics in a different way. I think, you know, for me, I will go to try a bit before I try in front of humans. Like if I'm like, I want to work on the wording, I just need to say it. I just need to say it and see if there's funny shit to think about. I just feel like going, like I'll go. But then, you know, for me, I probably get the most work done doing bar shows because you have actual people there that aren't comics. So then once you've kind of like gotten it out, you're like, now I'll try it in a real way. And I don't think you're seen as any way other than what you use it for. Do you know what I mean? Like you see the people who go just to hang out and who aren't moving forward for whatever reason, you know, that is. And then you see people who go there where you're like, oh, they're trying a bit, you know, and and they're not looked at way like that. It's pretty much up to you. It's not like decided, you know, you are what you make of yourself there, in my opinion, you know?
Yeah. And then John, like, do you find in London there's a kind of attitude of like, if you go back to those open mics, even just to try out bits, it's kind of looked upon in a certain way?
I don't know about that. I would say I don't know about that. I would say that me, like, personally, I take on the energy that I'm around, right? So if I'm going to the open mics, and there is, as I'm sure that you've seen in New York or wherever, Katharyn, there is open mics that is just negative energy of those guys who have been doing open mics for 10 years, never got anywhere, and they're their own little clique that, you know, they're in it for that. That's probably more what I'm talking about here, Vittorio, of like, where whenever I go into those places, I just don't think that is useful to me at all, because I just come away feeling sad.
Yeah, sad and angry.
Do you know what I mean? Feeling like I've been in a fucking grotty, like in a bad energy. It's almost like and that doesn't help me at all. There's obviously other ones where it is not like that. You know, like Old Rope is basically, you know, that's a new material night, but it's not like that. Everyone's lovely and you come around, you can, just what you're saying, Katharyn, you get to try new stuff and they know that, so you can die in your hole, but it's fine. But I suppose it's probably my issue is probably the people more than anything else. Like, of those guys who aren't trying. Yeah, they're not.
It's always the fuckers. But you know, and what's funny about what you saying that is, like, you know, when I started comedy, so basically I didn't know how to. I took a class, which, like, you know, it is what it is. And when I was done with the class, I was like, what do I do now? Like I said to this guy, I was like, and he was like, well, you got to go to open mics. So of course, you know, if I had read 2 more down on Google searching how to do stand-up comedy, I probably would have seen that, skipped the class, but whatever. So I started going to mics, and super clicky. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at these dudes and I'm thinking, like, I'm older than you. I've already been to high school. Like, I've been to jail. Like, I don't want to deal with this, you know? Like, so I was like, how else can I do comedy without necessarily going and sitting there and listening to these dudes jerk each other off over shit that would never work on stage. You know, when you think about it, you're like, this is like an inside joke. Hate this. So I started barking for people, like doing the producers, like outside of places, because I was like, well,
so
I get
just
to try my jokes in front of real people.
That won't know what barking is, it's like essentially flyering, just getting people from the street to come to a show.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
except
go on.
In New York, what we do, well, we make the bars stay out there for 2 hours, and then we put them last when there are about 6 people left in that audience that they barked in. It's pretty brutal, you know, like it's like this, you know, rite of passage or whatever, but it's a fucking nightmare. And I did that, and I did till I felt like I was as good as anybody else booked on the show, and then I stopped doing it and never did it again, you know, unless it was for my own show. So it's funny that you mentioned that kind of scene in open mics, because it was like, I was like, I'm not doing, if this is how I have to do this, I will find another way to do comedy, because I'm not going to be treated or feel like I'm not, like, I remember I was trying something and I saw a dude, I was so new. It was like my 4th open mic ever. And he like rolled his eyes, and I'm sitting here and I'm just like, I remember what that looked like. And I've since gotten wasted and been like, you fucking asshole. But like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's not what a mic is for. It's for trying something and fuck, maybe it sucks, but it's just like, don't laugh, you know? Like, oh, like the culture can be pretty like lame, you know? But again, for me, I'm like, fuck it. If I just need to say something, I don't even go there expecting to do well. And that was my problem the other night. I was like, I will go there and I will smash this open mic, which is like, that's like getting a participation trophy. You know what I mean? You're like, it doesn't matter.
And the
funny feeling. Oh,
go on, no, go.
No, I was saying that was like a similar thing. I also hated the feeling of the new material night or whatever when it's same everybody, because you're like, you know, depending on where you go, if you do start getting better gigs or whatever, you go to new material, just like you're saying, to new material, but the other guys there are doing their best because they have to lift up. And so when you're dying on your arse, but no one, and you can see them looking at you going, wait, this guy's doing like proper shows and all, I'm fucking better than him. And I remember being that guy as well. Like, but that feeling of looking around going, I just don't want to do my good stuff. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
there's also this culture in the UK, I think, of like, there is an element of the UK stand-up scene which kind of sees the pinnacle as something that's, or not the pinnacle, but definitely a level that people seem to aim for and plateau at, is something that isn't stand-up, which is like panel shows. And then they do their panel shows, and then they don't really... From what I can see, a lot of them don't do like sets about the places to work on stuff and try stuff. They do like their own work in progress shows for an hour and just kind of work from there. So it seems like there's less of a kind of attachment to the clubs as there is with like American comics. Like the biggest comedians in America still do 15-minute sets at clubs all the time. Do you know what I mean? And then they go on the road and like turn it into a show. But like, there just seems to be less of that culture of other than it like Top Secret, where a few people definitely do it, but it feels like the work in progress is more of a thing in the UK than it is in America.
Yeah, I don't know what you know what I mean? Everybody's running a new hour every year. That's crazy to me. But you mentioned Top Secret. I just want to say, like, those new material nights, I remember they were like, yeah, so you do new material. And I'm like, excuse me, do new material to like 300 people. I was like, that's what an open mic is for me. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I'll try, but it's mortifying to have like 300 people not fucking like your idea. And then which might even be a good idea. You know what I mean? But like, you haven't fixed it. So then you're like, I should just, you know what? Fuck the joke. I'll kill myself instead. How about that? Everybody want me to just set myself on fire? Does that sound good? And they're like, hooray. And you're like, like, I don't know if I could ever go up there with like an idea like I can at maybe a mic where I'm like, I don't know if this is funny, but you know, pedophile joke, right? And then, you know, which always are hit at mics anyway. So, you know, whatever.
Let's go into your normal process. And we've kind of touched on it, where you kind of have an idea, get it just out of your face at an open mic normally, and then take it to a bar show, work it out with some actual humans in the audience, and then build it into a bit. Like, are you a sit down and write out word for word person, or what's the crack?
No, but I've done that. And every time I do, I'm like, I need to do this with everything. But even now, look, I mean, I need to be like, because I've been pretty hard on myself for not basically being like, well, look, I mean, I didn't do any work during lockdown, so I guess this is who I am. But like, I'm a pretty specific situation, you know, like I'm not exactly in a comfortable, like my own space. You know, I'm living in a mold hole. Okay. And it's, you know, eating my brain. Which is changing Saturday, so I'm happy. But with that said, every time I've written stuff down, I'm like, oh, fuck, why am I saying this part? I don't even need that. So that just saved me time. That just tightened that up. I mean, I think for me, I would be well served by doing what I do and then adding that into it. And, you know, like, because then I think that's the work like that's actually hard for me, that I don't find fun. And I don't know if other people do, but I don't find it fun. But when I get into it, I find it fun, you know? But it's just like, it feels like work.
Yes, well, sitting down with a pen and paper or at a laptop is just that it just getting started, and the first 10 minutes are just fucking awful.
Yeah.
And then once the cogs start turning, I think then becomes fun. And then, I mean, I often write a whole bunch of shit that just I look at the next day and go, imagine I said that in front of anyone. That would be fucking insane, because I get too in my own imagination, and like I just know that people can't relate to that. So I think it is this balance of like, you don't want to write 20 minutes without ever testing it in front of humans.
Yeah.
But you don't want to go up with like just a bare bones premise necessarily, and finding the middle ground.
It's weird because like I hadn't even written any of my jokes down until March of last year, ever.
Wow.
Which is psychotic now that I think about it. Yeah, like pretty fucking crazy. But I don't know, maybe it was because you always see these people like kind of like floating around who are like, oh, I'm going to go write at a cafe right now. And I'm like, I've heard your jokes. And if you're really doing this much writing, you should be funnier. So I'm like, I didn't want to catch that disease, you know? So I was like, I'm not going to, I refuse to write so I don't end up as bad as you, you know? But I found every time which is honestly, honest to God, two times I sat down and wrote a bit out word for word. Mm-hmm. Ever, which is, you know, thousands of times too many, you know, or hundreds or however many bits I have. And when I was done, I was like, holy shit, that just fixed something that's been wrong, that I've been going like, I know something's wrong, but I'll deal with it later, and I'll just keep telling it wrong, you know, and maybe it'll fix itself. Like, I mean, I don't know if I know you, John, you're probably not familiar with my yeast infection bit, but like you kind of are. And there was a thing that I would say about, and it was a true part of it, like that I got on Amazon and read these reviews, right? And when I wrote this into a bit, I included that part as sort of like a save. That it wasn't even that funny, but it was a save in case everybody was too grossed out to laugh. But then I've since worked the bit so much that now the bit is funny enough where that save is just extra shit I'm saying for no reason. Mm-hmm. That's actually me going like, if you want to read something funnier than what I just said, it's like, why the fuck would I say something's funnier than me? I figured that out 2 weeks ago. Understand? Like, I'm like, so I've been blowing that bit for no reason, extra language and shit that doesn't add to it. And I only realized that once I sat down and worked on the bit, which I never do, which I should do.
Well, I think it's
everything.
Also, there's a feeling of like, if a bit is working at all on any level, it takes a bit of fucking balls to step back and attack it from a different angle in case a different angle works better, because it's like safe, whereas the new angle might not work at all. But you just have to be just prepared to fucking bomb if it doesn't work, but also you have to push that in different directions and look at stuff and try stuff, like flipping the premise around and inside out and whatever. And just because there probably is a better way. If there's something funny about the premise and it's going okay, you have to just like be prepared for it to not go well to find a better way to do it, I think.
I think you're right too with that. With like when it gets a laugh, like when you're saying something and it gets a laugh, it's sometimes harder to be like, okay, now what next?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing like that. I chatted to someone who worked with Michael McIntyre, and he was saying, whatever you think about McIntyre, he was saying that he is only ever satisfied once he's like, people are going to be falling out of their chair. So like every single laugh he had didn't matter unless it was like a giant thing. Yeah. And that's like, you talk to anyone who did like gig with him in clubs, they're like, he was unfollowable, like, because his bar for what was acceptable as a response was so much higher than everyone else's. Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yeah. No,
it's weird because like not to like, I don't know, digress or whatever, but like really been in rooms with comics who like they would get a couple chuckles and that was good enough. You know, like you're in a room with a full audience and they're like, well, and I'm like, I want everyone, even though like I don't do like family and friendly, you know what I mean? but I want them to be dying. Like I want to be that undeniable with my like
where they don't
shit.
have to agree with what you're saying to find it just unbelievably funny.
Well, I think one thing is that quite a lot of comedians never go to watch comedy. So especially when you're starting, like lots of people have got no idea what killing is, like what it is to actually see someone tear the roof off. And that is like, I've seen people at gigs who are like, yeah, smashed it. And you're just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You don't understand what smashing it is. If that's what your bar is.
And also, I think there's a thing where when you're on stage and you're new, you like anything feels amazing. Like a little titter feels like, oh my God, I made them laugh. I'm fucking killing this. This is class. And then you watch it back like a year later or whatever, and you're like, Jesus Christ, like they're breathing out of their nose. And I remember thinking in my head that I was fucking killing that. So there is a weird perception of like what it feels like on stage when it's the first times you're getting a few laughs versus what it feels like in the audience. Like, cause that's going to be different as well. Do you have any bits, I'm aware of time, that you have written that you want to work on?
Sorry.
Well, okay. There was something that like I realized it's more about, sort of yes and no. You know how I got all ranty at the beginning? Like I've been doing that. And I've always done that. And that's something I don't do on stage. And I'm like, what is it then?
Yes.
When is that going to, like, the thing is like, what's this lockdown is I felt, as I've been doing this like for a little while, more than ever before, I felt the most myself up there. And you've seen me a few times, Vittorio, where I go from being very normal, saying very scary things, and then I sometimes do a very weird thing, and then I go back to being normal. But then I also have that ranting capability, and I'm like, where is that? Like, where is the bit where that's going to come out? Is it that I'm been so cooped up that eventually I'm going to start but like, it's weird because I don't know how to like write that and then repeat it. It's something that just happens when I'm very, but like, I know like, whatever, like Bill Burr, Lewis Black, like what, they do that. But I mean, when is that going to come out of me? Because people have been ranting about my like situation here when I went to that club and I was screaming at a comic I don't know, a female comic. I terrified her. I'm sure she like won't speak to me, but like I screamed at her for like 12 minutes about like the people that I live with and how he's so boring that it makes me angry. And I become like enraged. Like when he talks about music, it makes me never want to hear music again. And I like where I have to leave the room, and I was screaming about him and I was screaming about her. And they did this whole, they helped this love. It's fun. And like, whatever. And she was laughing and I was like, why can't I just do this? Do you know what I mean? Like I'm sitting here, I'm like, are there bits there? Like, so, I've been thinking a lot about that. Like, was my time to turn into that person going to come? Had I continued being on stage, or am I now delayed, or is it coming now? Because it's like, I didn't want him.
Like I've heard Bill Burr, which you mentioned, say that he doesn't really write anything down in terms of bits. And I think it's worked out quite well, John, because you would be someone that rants and is like gets quite animated and kind of angry on stage,
fired
like
up.
Or seemingly, fired up. Woo! But like, so what's been this has worked out quite well. What's been your kind of? Because I'm the opposite. I'm just very fucking chilled out and just say the words on stage, which is terrible when it doesn't go well. But what's your feeling on that ranty style?
So, well, look, first of all, Katharyn, like Vittorio sort of told me like the kind of stuff you do, and it feels very like what I'm into, which is I want an emotional connection to a comedian. Like that's what I want. I don't like one-liners. I don't like jokes. Like I want to see something of the person, and that's what I like to do as well. And I just think, look, at some point, you just get so fucked off, like you're talking about there, that the only answer is to tell people. And it's like, and I don't think like, you don't need to like about being delayed or whatever. It's just going to happen. It's going to happen anyway, because it'll get to a point where you're just like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, this is like, because that's what you want to talk about. That's funny already what you said. So it's like, it just will happen. Like, that's kind of will happen for me. My thing was I had to pull back, like, because I've got hair now, but I used to have a shaved head and looked like a complete fucking maniac. And it was like, it was putting people off. And like the amount of times I'd come off stage and like either the producers of the show, audience would be like, man, like that's just too much. Like, it's because I'm just like coming out of a fucking gun. So my thing, like, I'm trying to hold back now, but that's the feeling. Like when you hit that, because you're talking about something that you want to talk about, it's on your mind, you're emotionally connected to it, and everybody knows that. That's the thing, is like everybody gets fucked off with the people that are around them, and boring people are the most. Those people should be killed. Like, I'm like, when people are so boring, I have a bit. Vittoria's probably seen it as well. Of like, so my people in my family were, maybe had to do things in times gone past, and so I had to learn how, like, what you do when you talk to police, right? As you did as well, and like interrogation techniques or all this kind of stuff. And so my bit now is about using that. So like when a boring person, like, one of my missus' friends or whatever, who most of them are lovely, some of them are horrible, that I start building a wall in my head and start building a wee house. And so as they're talking, I'm not even in the room anymore, picking out the blocks that's in the fucking wall. So but that only happens because you're so fucked off. The same. So like, I don't know. Yeah. I can't wait to see. Like, your situation is so mental right now that
you don't even know.
I haven't even.
My life is hinged on a virus and Brexit. Okay, which are like synonymous, frankly, as far as I'm concerned. And like, I'm in Australia, a place, like. I've never been out of my country.
Well, no, because
I need to
go on. You explain.
Tell him, Vittorio. I'm so tired. Do you know, it's been so fun. Like, here's how I've started most of my conversations recently. Not to get like, but I've like, to my closest friends, I'm like, hello, I'm suicidal, and they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. For the first time ever, I'm like, they're like, why? And then I list what's going on, and then they try to solve the problem. And then by the end of like 45 minutes later, they're like, yeah, I wish you're fucked. And I'm like, yeah, like, I know, like, I can't solve the equation. And I'm very independent, and I'm very used to solving my own fucking problems. And this is an unsolvable fucking mess. Like,
is there something about like,
it's so funny,
like that by the end of the conversation, like they're suicidal as well? You're almost contagious.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, maybe you should do it.
Yeah. You're like, it's like, it's like a debate. It's like this side of the debate believes
coronavirus. One conversation with me, everybody's dead.
I think like oh, sorry, no, you've got so much, it's shit because you're in it now, but the joy for you is going to be in a year's time. Like,
I think that's what because anytime I'm trying to write about something while I'm really in it, it doesn't work on stage anyway, because I'm connected to it emotionally. Yeah. And then I usually have to stop doing it, and then I can look back on it and then take out what like works and then put it in. But I've been told this is going to be good. Like, that was actually the one thing that made me feel good the other day. And now you've said it. It's like another comic who knows me pretty well. He's like, this is going to be really funny later. Like,
Yeah.
And I'm like,
sure. And it's super good, because I think the real worry for a lot of comedians at the minute is that everything about lockdown is like too universally experienced. Where it's like, I could talk about being in my house all the time, but that's happened to everyone. I could talk about moving back with my parents. That happened to a lot of people. I could talk about the virus. I could talk about this, and this, but it's just happened to everyone. Whereas with you have a genuinely interesting story that like people don't, because that's a lot of what it is. Like for the whole time with stand up is like a unique perspective, and everyone's struggling to find that unique perspective on lockdown. But you've just had a unique lockdown, so you're fucking. It'll be great.
Yeah. Can I maybe use that suicide line that you said?
Yeah, absolutely.
If I ever do comedy again, I love to ask, because people don't ask, and then suddenly you see like two grown men arguing over like a dick joke, like outside of a club, and you're like, oh my god. They're like, but I said, and like,
Yeah.
there's
But
no
that's
tape
what
to
this
review,
that's what
and it's
this
a nightmare
podcast
for
is.
everybody.
It's like it's people working on like writing stuff together. I wanted to ask about something you told me, and I can't remember who, because somebody said it to you. This thing about when you're doing a show, is it new and is it you? Who?
And is it true? Yeah.
Yes. Is it?
It's so funny because the person who said, it's like, okay, his name's Harrison Greenbaum. It's just funny because I've also said this to Mark. I've said this to Mark a million times. His name's Harrison Greenbaum, and he's very funny, super nice dude. He does a lot of magic comedy as well, which
I was like, that's a name. I was thinking in my head. I don't know the guy's who can't say, but that's a Disneyland magician.
yeah. But he says that, and it's something like, I know Mark's not on this show right now, but it's something. So I'm married to a comedian who I've said to him that watching him on stage is one of the more confusing experiences of my life, because I see him. I'm like, I see the people laughing, and I see him being funny, and I see parts of it that are honest, like about how he was in speech therapy and like is the artsy guy on the construction site, right? And I'm like, for me, that's compelling. But then he'll tell a fucking joke about some dreamed up universe like that, like sometimes works, but then sometimes doesn't. But it's like he's like, comedy's not going well, so I decided to be a magician, and my girlfriend broke up with me. And I was like, none of that's true, dude. None of that's even kind of true. And like, the joke is so bad, but there's one good line. Like, I'm like, look, the whole thing is bad, but there's one good line, that being a magician is hard. So many devs. And I'm like, he like has this part about a wand going in and out of his ass. I was like, do not tell any of that. All of that is garbage. All of it is not true. And I realized what the issue is he's trying to make a non-reality his reality, instead of allowing you to realize who he is and then be like, I figured being a magician is hard, because then you're in his imagination, which is, Mark is very imaginative. Mm-hmm. But rather than letting it be like part of his imagination, him being like, here's who I am and here's my imagination, he like tries to make it true. And then it just is some weird mishmash. It's like, who the fuck is this guy? And I brought that up just because I was watching John Mulaney, and that's how I see John Mulaney do his thing. He's like, I was raised Catholic. This is my family. And then here's my imagination about being a comedian when Home Alone 2 came out and how I'd be a Def Jam comic, So it's like, you learn about him through that, but he's trying to make that reality. Mm-hmm. And that's why it works. It's like you learn more about him, even in that fantastic world he's made that isn't like real.
Yeah.
So I solved Mark's problem, is what I mean to say. Not my own, though.
We should go through. We've had a few comments on the live chat on Instagram Live. Eshaan has joined.
People are looking.
Yeah, we've got some viewers. There's Eshaan is viewing.
I don't. Is Eshaan the fucking lazy bastard getting paid by BBC? My license paying money going to him. We can't deny here.
He said various things, none of which are relevant. But we had some comments just about. What were you saying?
Are they mean comments? Are they mean? I can't handle.
So he said, "Who the fuck is that? John fucking Maher," and then in brackets, "Hi, Katharyn. This podcast needs more diversity. I never shit myself before going on stage because I'm excellent. I always feel good before going on stage and fucking destroy, etc., etc., etc." I did want to because people make fun of me for this, and it came up on this podcast where people laughed at me because I do. And I'm worried it comes across weird, but it's kind of purely for my own benefit. And Katharyn, you've seen it before. Like, I'll turn to you before I know what you're going to say and be like, I'm going to fucking smash it. And people get
Yeah.
really put off by that. But it's literally just for my own brain to be like, this is ridiculous. I'm going to just go tell some jokes. But there is this kind of, I don't know, just persona. Because it's not a persona. I'm very much myself on stage, but I have to just get into this mindset of like some kind of confidence or even false confidence that takes the weight off the situation for me. Do you guys have any like tricks before you go on stage where you're just like, just something that gets you into that kind of mode quickly?
I think it's funny you're even asking me this. You've literally been with me when I've looked at you like in the eyes and been like, I'm going to bomb. And then I go up and it goes fine. But I'm like I'm usually in the headspace of like having to remind myself I do this. And I've done this. You're like, I've done this before. You've done it once or twice. You got it under control. And then like preparing to eat a dick. And then being like, then I get off stage and I'm like, well, that could have gone better, even though it was like perfectly fine, you know, because my standard is very high. And I'm like, I hate myself because I didn't do this right or that right or whatever, you know. So no, the answer is no.
Do you feel like you've ever had it? Because you've said a few times about this kind of like, it wasn't good by my standards. It wasn't good. Do you have any sets that stand out and you're like, that was a really fucking, that I felt self-actualized by that set?
I mean, there's somewhere like parts of it where I was like, that was the best. That was the best. You know, I've had some, look, I mean, like I did a set at top where I got an applause break for saying like, I raped myself. Like I did my I raped
Great
myself joke.
One of my favorite jokes of all time. I think that's, John, have you seen or heard the joke?
He looks stressed out.
No, but I'm just thinking about, I'm putting your set list together in my head.
For anyone watching that doesn't know Katharyn or listening, go on her Instagram and find the joke about her raping herself. It is stupendous.
It felt real. Like, do you know what I mean? Like I can't watch it now. It brings me to tears because, you know, we don't do comedy anymore. It's over. But like when I used to, I was like, I cannot, but like a friend of mine, one of the guys I write with in New York, I have like one person I can write with. I sent him that and he was like, I can't believe they are clapping for you for that joke. Like an applause break. I can't believe, and I was like, neither can I. And I was like, that moment felt like awesome. Cause I'm just like, you know how many times I've had to bomb and walk out of a shitty alt room in Brooklyn with that and be like, sorry, excuse me. I'm a feminist where like, you know, like, so, you know, there's moments. I mean, like, look, like, if I'm going to be honest, like, it felt like this was going to be my year, you know, like for me, for comedy, not like, oh, I was going to like make it, but like, then I was going to be in a place for me where I'm like, who I really am is like up there and I don't give a like, I'm being me, like that moment where you're kind of like too fucked to care, but like, I care so much, but where I'm like, it's me. And that's what you're here for. Yeah. Like, whatever it's going to, and, you know, it's scary because it's like, I am scared to think now I have to like, I'm kind of going back and I'm like, let me tell the joke. Like I have to get the jokes all warmed up again before I can go back to feeling comfortable being myself. And then that's not fun. That's not as fun when you're like, fuck it. I know the joke so well that it can just roll out however it's going to roll out. And if somebody doesn't like it, I can yell at them or this or that, you know, whatever I'm going to do because I know I'll be funny no matter what. And that's gone right now for me. It felt like, you know, Friday was fun when I did the show, but it wasn't like the same. It was a lot of like, am I going to get this joke out? And like the answer is no. I forgot my like major callback that I set up and I fucking forgot it. And then I was under time. So when I got off stage, I was like, you got to be kidding me. I was like, fuck, like I, and everybody's like, great set. And I'm like, shut up. Like, you know, like, you know, so get away from me. That was a failure. Like, that's how I felt, you know? So it's like, you got to relearn all that shit again, I guess, or start over. I mean, I know some people who are like scrapping everything. I mean, I think they're insane, but like, do you know?
Yeah. We'll do one question that's just come in from the chat and then we will finish up. It's a weird question. Do you ever cull good jokes from sets? And I feel like no.
Yeah.
Cull?
Like cull, get rid of.
I don't get it. call good jokes
call
sets?
C-U-L-L.
Like get rid of them, like cut them.
Oh, do you get rid of good jokes?
Yeah, I have.
Why?
Yeah, I don't know how long like you've been doing. Yeah.
Just because I did them for too long. Like,
Yeah, you don't enjoy them anymore.
jokes. Yeah, it's just, they don't fit anymore, and it's a bit like ramp. It's like just like you were saying, Katharyn, with your husband's material of like you're really into it, you're really good, and then it just goes in a different direction. And you're like, ramp. It's just that is just. I'm like, it's easier to get rid of, and maybe they'll come back like further on. They might be good in a better show, but as I go on, I'm just like, it's not worth the effort for me to like figure out how to fucking wedge this in. And sometimes when you do that, it never flows and doesn't feel right anyway. It's easier just to put it to the side and go, well, we'll figure you out again, and in 6 months or whatever, and doing other stuff.
And Katharyn.
I feel like I don't think I left enough time for questions. I was talking too much. This is the most action I've had in a minute. And it was like, tag team, like everybody gets so excited when there's two. So, I mean, I don't think I've done an hour that I love enough to like get rid of jokes. But like the thing is I've accidentally cut things out that I was like, fuck, that was like a great tag. Like bring that back, And of course I tried to do that on Friday too. I tried to bring a tag back that I totally haven't said even before lockdown. I was trying to do too much at once, because I was like, this is my only shot.
Yeah.
I was right. Women usually are right. But I think what John says is, it's true. Like eventually you're like, yeah, you retire things, and maybe you'll do them if you feel like it, or maybe you'll find something that breathes new life into something, ooh, that works. Ooh, and I can but I think it makes sense. You retire things.
Yeah, you don't want to be going around the country doing the same 20 minutes for 6 years. Do you know what I mean? It would just get... Because I think there's a cultural thing where we look at comedians in America talking about, oh yeah, you retire a bit after you put it on a special. And I think something in our brain goes, yeah, that's when you retire a bit. But we just need to retire it when we're fucking bored of it, or it doesn't fit anymore, like you said.
There are no fucking rules. You know what I mean? There are no rules.
Yeah,
There's really no rules.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I loved about comedy when you could still do it. I was just like, fuck it. What are the rules?
Yeah.
It's really what you want out of it,
Yeah.
The only
Coming from
rule...
somebody who doesn't have a manager or agent.
Oh yeah, no. This is to be upper. That is the only rule. If you're upper class, it's easy breezy.
Yeah, that's true.
There's my fucking trigger. We start ranting again.
Was that a Chris D'Elia quote?
Yeah, there's plenty of them. Hey, thanks.
So we'll finish up there. Thanks very much to everyone who tuned in. Don't forget to hit the little thumbs up button and hit subscribe on this YouTube channel, and check out all the other episodes of Doing Bits. If you're listening on iTunes, don't forget to give us a little 5-star review. It helps spread the word. And some dickhead gave us a 1-star review and didn't even leave a comment with their name on it. Honestly, if you're gonna give a 1-star review, I feel like you need to give some constructive feedback on some level.
That's one of your friends being a dick.
Exactly. It was you, John, wasn't it?
It was me before you had me on.
Yeah.
I'll adjust it.
Jump on iTunes and give us a 5-star there. Thanks so much for checking us out. We're live at 7:30 for Doing Bits, and I'm going to hit end stream. Thank you very much.
Hello? No, was that good? I don't know.